What is going on, my today people? My name is Wendy, and I really appreciate you all joining me yet again for another. Now, on today's entry, we're going to be doing a little talking about something called numerology. I know some of y'all out there actually live by it, so how about this? It's 5:22 right now. I also want to get into the new movie called They Cloned Tyrone. All right, I'll be giving y'all a few takes on it without spoiling, I might add. But you know what? Actually, I probably should just tell y'all the whole movie, right? Like, come on, a lot of y'all just lost y'all Netflix privileges. Don't let's not front about that. Come on now. Yeah, I know. Also, I want to get into this congressional hearing in Washington they've been having recently about UAPs. Ooh. Now, I do know at least one of y'all out there believe that they might have saw something a little freaky in the sky recently. All right. This one's for you. Hold that. And speaking of the sky, we're also going to talk about some of these delays people have been experiencing at the airports and much, much more. It's really crazy out there, y'all. But before we get started, here's one fair that will always remain fair. Dear future robots, with the FAA recently approving test flights by way of special certification for a new flying car by Alef Aeronautics, does this truly open Pandora's box to a future that looks like the Bruce Willis movie, The Fifth Element? You know, that traffic scene? I guess that remains to be seen. Let's start the show. Yeah, my today people, how are y'all doing? I feel like it's been so long. I'm realizing that uh you know I must love this because I miss doing it. Like when I'm, you know what I mean, like damn, it's a real thing. Found a passion. But I really hope y'all are living in your blessings out there because I feel like I'm living in mine, just walking right into that. And it's definitely a good feeling. So salute to all of y'all out there that feel like y'all have found it, and for those yet to find that, just keep searching, keep digging. All right. But how was y'all weekend, man? Mine was pretty busy, but in a good way. Spent a lot of time, obviously, always with family. Um, Launched the boxing podcast this past weekend. Shout out to the Pool Counter podcast. Y'all run it up, check it out. We definitely gonna be doing a lot of growing in the next few months. I got a lot of things planned for it. I'm very excited. As well as Dear Future Robots. You know, this is my original baby. Yeah, I mean after my real kids, obviously. But yeah, man, I got some big things planned for this realm. Y'all help me with this social media stuff, y'all. That stuff is a headache to me, man. But I'm trying. I hope y'all enjoy the things I share and put out on there. Because y'all have heard episodes in the past. Social media is not really my thing. I'm not a big fan of it. But you know, we're making it work. You know, putting our brain to work. But hey, I got a lot to get into with y'all today, and I hope y'all consume it as it was meant to be consumed. But first, I want to talk about a new movie. Like I mentioned in the intro, it's called They Cloned Tyrone. All right. So never mind about the Netflix passwords. I'm not going to spoil it right now. I'm just hoping y'all will be able to see it at some point because I will say, and I'm usually a harsh critic, it was a very good movie. All right. Very good movie. John Boyega, man, I hope this cat gets something for this movie. I remember looking over to my wife, pausing the movie and saying, like, yo, Damson who? Daniel what? What? Daniel who? This guy is an acting powerhouse right now. He's killing it. When the movie first started, I literally had to Google to make sure it was him. Not just because it you know, the makeup or the hair, whatever they switched up on him, but the voice, the mannerisms. This guy embodied somebody completely different in a way that you don't see too many people of that craft, actors or actresses, do. And salute to him. Salute to Jamie Foxx. I think the hair was a little, you know, outrageous, but you know, could have did without the hair. But salute to Jamie's character and Tiana Paris, man. I love me some Tiana Paris, man. Salute to her as well. She should be a way bigger actress. Now we can probably guess on one finger why she isn't. But salute to her. Love her. Keep doing your thing. This was a really, really good movie, man. Like, I think the producer was Stephen Love, and it is based on a screenplay by Jewel Taylor and Tony Rettenmeyer. Definitely a good movie. Right now, Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 94%. IMDb gave it a 6.7. Again, not surprised. Watch it yourself. It kept me on the edge of my seat. And that's all I'm gonna say about that, y'all. Like I said, I don't want to spoil anything. Oh, and I will say this one last thing. All right, and this isn't really spoiling much, but by the title, you guys can already surmise that there is a clone. This is something to do with clones, right? There's a bigger message. You guys will be able to get it in some parts of the rest of the episode, but the bigger message is don't be that weapon being used by white supremacy. Yeah, but I'll let y'all figure that out. After y'all finally watch the movie, I can look at little details of what you missed. People doing rundowns on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. But this ain't gonna be a place where I really spoil it. All right, so let's fly right into the rest of the episode. So get ready for Scrap Metal Media. All right, let's do it. Scrap Metal Media. Welcome to Scrap Metal Media, where all news is two-faced. Take it or leave it. Flights, man. Flights. I said we was going to fly into this now. If you or anybody you know has been a victim of extreme wait times, long lines, heavy layovers, or missed flights, please call this. No, I'm just joking. No, but seriously, y'all, flights lately have been crazy. For those that don't know, there's been tons of issues with different airlines, big business right now, union issues. Most of the delays are believed to have been caused by scheduling issues. And they're saying mostly that's attributed to the large number of layoffs and buyouts that a lot of these airline companies made during the pandemic, right? That was a time where things were kind of up in the air, right? Businesses were in a predicament, really. It was a real precarious time for a lot of businesses. And obviously that trickled down to us as individuals with families, et cetera, et cetera. But what happened was when things actually opened back up, right? Especially in Florida. I mean, I don't think we were locked down too long. DeSantis doing his thing. But we opened up, back to business as usual. And the airlines didn't seem to have enough experienced staff to appropriately respond to the demand. Now, all of the pressure felt by the staff prompted the unions to step up, just demanding more pay and essentially respect, right? Obviously, there's a lot more put in, you can add into that, but it essentially just boils down to pay and respect. Let's see, I saw on Kiplinger.com, they had a survey and they said 98% of pilots would participate if a strike reached full tilt today. Now, this conversation about flights, prices, wait times, layovers, missed flights, it just got me thinking, right? And I remember learning about, and this is a few years back, but I remember learning about a issue back in 1973. It's called the 1973 oil crisis. And for those that don't know, that is where OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, decided that enough was enough. And they ended up placing an oil embargo on countries at the time that had supported the Israeli government during what they called the Yom Kippur War. Now, this had a major impact on the U.S. and its industries as oil prices soared upwards to 300%. But here's the taxi to the holding point. When tempers descended back down to normal elevation, those prices stayed sky high. But of course, no one really complains anymore, right? This is America, land of the free, home of the brave. We don't want to sound broke. Airlines have been getting away for decades with runway robbery. And all it would take is customers saying enough is enough, right? I guess we need a union. Now, Honestly, I'm sure that airline companies, just the industry in general, can actually afford to pay their staff fairly and not gouge passengers at the same time. But hey, that's just a thought. UFOs. Yes, UFOs. These have actually been a topic of discussion lately by some due to this congressional hearing last week by former intelligence officers, snitches, whatever you want to call them, David Grush and his cohorts. Now, UAPs, which is what they are actually calling them now, I guess because UFOs kind of has that like negative connotation, but I still like calling them UFOs from time to time. It's fun. That's what I remember from my childhood. But I guess these adults feel like they sound silly, right? But hey, oh, and if you haven't already, check out my aliens and Chinese balloons episode or entry. I put a lot into that and gave a few details you guys might want to check out. And I might not include the same things in this episode. That's why I'm saying that. But check it out. Run that one up. I swear, y'all, some of us just can't seem to accept or even realize how conditioned or even brainwashed we could be. It drives me crazy sometimes, right? Sci-fi has entranced most of American society, from fortune tellers and the Yeti to the ghost hunters and vampire slayers. Most of us grew up on a lot of that stuff. So, I understand. And I also feel as though subconsciously, we just want this stuff to be real, not necessarily acknowledging that it just came from somebody's mind and not our observable reality. Now, that's not me denying the unobservable truths at all. I'm just acknowledging the God of the gaps. All right. Now, back to Mr. Grush and his fellow Trekkies. These men allege to members of the House that they've either witnessed aliens or unidentified phenomena firsthand, or know personally of many military members and officials and secret service, whatever, that have privately given them information. Now, I personally believe that all of this is highly unlikely. Like at this point, with how gullible some of y'all are, I might be the only alien denier left. I don't know. It just kind of feels like that sometimes. But y'all, here's the funny part though. Probably about 10 to 12 years ago, probably more like 12, I was a major believer in this trash. Like, I watched all the off-brand videos on YouTube talking about reptilians and the tall grays. I read some David Icke and even watched Ancient Aliens so much I thought Buddy with the crazy hair was my boy. Look, all I'm trying to say is I knew what I was talking about, right? And I still think I do know what I'm talking about to a certain extent, right? Now, fast forward through a series of exercises in logic and study of histories, I no longer believe in ET and delusional fantasy. What makes it worse, though, this part here is crazy. Right now, we have technology that can easily fake all of this stuff. For the first time in history, I truly believe that we have technology that can cleanly, just perfectly, for the first time, fake an actual landing. Right? I believe we have craft, and we have all the, y'all saw the Drake concert when he was on stage sitting on the couch with his his hologram version of himself. Like, you can make anything happen nowadays, right? And I believe we actually, y'all keep up with this, I believe we just saw a test run of this in Las Vegas, right? This past June, there was a family that called the cops, and they were alleging that there was a craft that landed in their backyard. And there were other witnesses apparently on the road as well. So all these witnesses say that they saw, or allege that they saw something traveling kind of low in the sky, in the night sky, and crash somewhere. And you can see the police body cam footage for when they pull up. And these people, they didn't seem like they were lying. So I'm not thinking that they're in on anything, but they're just regular people with a certain frame of reference, obviously. Stuff like this, it's funny to me that stuff like this is always conveniently in the PM, huh? Like, maybe the aliens are on that vamp life. I don't know. Also, anybody ever notice that alien technology always seemed to coincide with ours? Like, it's known already that the military contractors, DoD, and others have access to and develop technologies for military and space application decades before we get them. Like, examples, we got drone technology and duct tape. Come on, like, Google that. Like, you know what I mean? Before we had access to it, it was already here, right? Also, look at the saucer videos from the 70s and 80s, man, and compare it to what we're seeing today. Like, if that doesn't make you think, you might just be a lost cause. Now, before I leave this topic, I gotta read this DN that was sent to me about the UAP's hearing. And you know who you are, by the way. But I just thought this was hella funny. So just some backstory. Me and one of my guys, man, he's a good dude. But we had a brief convo about this a few days before the hearing even happened, right? And I essentially mentioned maybe like 30-40% of what I just told you guys, right? So needless to say, he left the conversation speechless and just questioning his once believed reality as per usual. But this time, like Popeye with his spinach, he would later become supercharged when he heard about that hearing. He ended up sending me, it's something from TikTok he sent me actually, but it was a video about the hearing, or on the hearing actually. And yeah, this was his chance to just throw something at me and feel like he finally got one over on me, man. But let me read the DMs and you guys let me know what y'all think, all right? All right, this is my guy Blank Blank. So he sends me something from Now This Politics on TikTok. And, cool. I didn't have to watch it because I already know what it is. And, like I said, I've been on this stuff. So let me start with and I'll try to change my voice so I can keep up on when it's me versus him. All right, so I start. Or he sends me that and then I start. I said, I heard about it. What do you think? I'm asking him now, what does he think? And he replies, it's what I was talking about. This isn't David's first hearing, right? And he's talking about the guy David Grush, right? So I reply, yeah, I've seen interviews with him years ago. Not convinced. I believe that he believes that he's seen these things. Stranger things have happened is all. Then he replies, bruh, I absolutely believe the government has been hiding their experimentation. And I reply, still doesn't mean ET, my man. That's the point I'm making. Yeah, and then he goes, they asked if they're non-biological entities flying. They said yes. They asked if they were non-human biologics. They said yes. That means we have both robots and aliens from outer space. I don't know how much more you want as proof. I reply, lol. Okay, if I'm wrong, you can have my house. And then he replies, I'm not gonna make your kids homeless, but I'll take your car though. And then I reply, in quotes, non-biologicals, ? LOL, there's better wording that could be used. And he says, bruh, why is this one pill hard to swallow? And then I reply, I personally think a lot of people want badly for there to be something else to believe in. I'd ask you why it's so easy, ? Also, I don't swallow pills that easily, bruh. LOL. And he says, because the reality that we are the single living thing or entity in the universe just seems highly improbable. And let me pause that right quick. It's funny, and I think I mentioned it later in the message, but I remember when this little sentiment or this statement started like spreading. It's crazy. It's like social engineering is ridiculous, man. Groupthink. But then getting back to the story, I reply, like logically, if evolved from fish and single-celled organisms, why couldn't another planet with the right atmospheric conditions do the same? I replied to that. I remember when, this is me still talking about the other thing. I remember when they first started using that, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, LOL, fish though? Really? And he comes back, man. He's like, yeah, don't tell me you're a creationist. And mind you, this guy is an atheist. It is what it is. That's him. And now at this point, this conversation is becoming convoluted because I'm busy, and I kind of feel like trolling now because he's trying to like one up me with stuff from Congress. I tell him that even the way he's asking his questions really just feels like he's just yearning for this to be true, and I'm laughing at him. And then he's like, "Oh snap, that's right, you did hint at believing in intelligent design." And I'm like, I don't hint anything. I'm not that kind of man, and I am an open book. I will tell you exactly how I feel and think at any particular time. What happens is that, quote unquote, I don't know, isn't in the normal pattern of speech for us. We are conditioned in a duality, so if you're not this, then you must be this. And I say that's not the real world. Then he comes back with, when life moved out of the sea, then we eventually got mammals. The first mammal was a rat-like creature that survived the meteor because it didn't need heat from the sun to stay alive like the lizards. Okay, so I reply, I'm replying to what he said earlier. No one says we evolved from fish. I'm trying to figure out if you're being facetious right now. Uh, then he comes back with, our lineage at one is shared. Okay. I tell him fish are a specific thing. And he says, but it diverts millions and millions of years ago. I told you I was getting a little petty right now. I was a little annoyed, so it is what it is. And I come back with, well, that's very different than what you said. With that logic, then you can just say most life is related. And then he says all life on Earth is related. We all come from single-celled organisms millions of years ago. Okay, I give him a thumbs up, sure. So what stopped you from saying we evolved from single-celled organisms? And he replies, scientists have studied extremophiles for as long as I can remember because they believe they're similar to the first life on Earth. I say, do you think we are equal to said aliens? Like I said, I'm a little petty right now. I know it. So he goes on a rant about extremophiles. He's like, extremophiles are cellular organisms living near underwater volcanic vents. I think aliens may have also evolved from single cells, but the cell type could be widely different from our own. It would evolve in an entirely different fashion because of the adversity on that planet is different than the adversity on our own planet. And I'm sorry if it's hard to keep up. I'm trying to fix on the spot some grammatical errors, and I replied to that because he kind of went in right there. I'm like, LOL. Very ironic how everyone gets on one accord at times. Was the same with cryptocurrency for me. Everybody wanted to go to the moon when I was arguing that it was just a commodity. Now it's aliens. When I was into researching, people thought it was nerdy. And I at this point I go back to a earlier question that I asked him, and I don't think he answered it. So I'm like sending question marks on the do you think we're equal to said aliens? And I'm telling him, don't run from that one. Let's see. He says, no. He says, we may have a common shared evolutionary history because of the requirements we know are needed for our life, but that's where the buck may end per se. Like aliens might have evolved on their planet from single cell organisms. Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, where'd you come up with this? And then he comes back with, or aliens could be one massive single cell organism. Then I'm like, is their planet in this galaxy? He sends me a whole bunch of questions. And like I said, at this point, I'm over it. But yeah, this is what I'm having to deal with now, y'all. This is what y'all helped this. Y'all helped a lot of this stuff, man. Like people, like logic is out the window. But that's where we are at right now, and it's unfortunate, man. But I'm gonna leave that alone, man. All right, so moving on. I see your aliens in the Congress and raise you, invasion of the body snatchers. All right, Dianne Feinstein and Mitch McConnell. Whew. I think it's kind of messed up that we're in a society where the elderly, unfortunately, are able to latch on to careers like radio, television, and politics as if it's the only thing that is keeping them alive. Now, it could, of course, just be greed, obviously. Now, imagine being in the mailroom and working up 40 years until you're the president of said Ruby Tuesdays, right? You're probably going to stick around another decade or so to soak up some of that mooching and glory that comes with finally being the head honcho. Now, these old folk, of course, don't normally hang out with young folks, so if they're passing it on, it's either going to be to their 50-year-old children or closest confidants. 81-year-old Mitch McConnell was making some opening remarks about an annual defense policy bill and suddenly froze, staring out into the crowd as if the Grim Reaper was coming. Dianne Feinstein looked near casket ready as she sat there in her 90 years worth of birthdays at the Senate Appropriations hearing. And don't even get me started on Biden. The same way that there's a requirement for most political offices, there should also be an age limit. Now, personally, I think 60 is fair. This way, it'll at least ensure that the retiring incumbent will find younger, well-suited candidates to potentially win the vote or appointment when it comes. No more geriatric vacuums of power. Corporate oligarchs have been holding up some of these body bags like Weekend at Bernie's just to re-up year after year on this 50-year vote that's been in their pocket. Millennials to the rescue. Let's go. That's it for Scrap Metal Media, y'all. Hug your grandparents if you can. By golly. Now, how many of you out there have ever heard of the Southern Strategy? All right, put your hands where my eyes can see. I kid. But for those that aren't familiar, in the early 1960s, Republican Senator Barry Goldwater and his team developed strategies to appeal to whites, quote unquote whites, in the Deep South for purpose of winning elections. This was a tall feat, so the lengths they had to go would have to be deep. The Democratic Party back then had a stranglehold on the South since the Civil War. Yes, that long ago. So to edge out the competition, Barry Goldwater and Richard Nixon had to perfect being able to subtly speak to the racist hearts of some Americans, and many believe that they succeeded. Shoot, they say those that know history repeat it, and those that don't know history are doomed as victims, right? Now, y'all do remember what happened when Trump and Steve Bannon got together, right? Uh, before Trump hired Bannon, he was a fish out of water, a laughing stock, just waiting for Hillary Clinton to hand him a Chicago, Illinois. Yeah, she's from Chicago, Illinois, so Illinois, handing him an L, whatever, mind your business. All right, so Bannon is a political strategist and at the time an exec at Breitbart News and also Cambridge Analytica. These are all places, by the way, that the pointy hat people love to frequent. Now, what was scary about this guy, Bannon, was that he was actually intelligent. All right, able to turn the Trump campaign around. And by my estimation, he might have been the reason Trump won. Right? Bannon is a strategist, a pretty darn good one. Now, moving away from Bannon, in 1981, while being interviewed about the Southern strategy, a guy named Lee Atwater, another legendary racist, said this.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts you, backfire. So you say stuff like force busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes, and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger nigger, you know. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
Y'all heard it. Now, look, the goal back then was for them to convince other quote unquote white people that they were not racist, right? They had to hide kind of in plain sight. So they knew they couldn't be seen as the racist ones because that was kind of seen now, at that time at least, in the civil rights era as something, or because of the civil rights era, as something that disturbed order, right? Protests, freedom rides, people feeling sympathy towards a marginalized group of people. And they knew they couldn't have that. So they had to come up with a new strategy. And also nowadays, it's gotten so crazy, so complex and just convoluted that I would say the revamped, so to speak, objective is just to convince black folk of the same thing. Right? How about that? I think it's very slick, very effective, and it seems to be the new scheme. Right? Now, let me ask you guys this. Any of you out there ever heard of a dindu? It's spelled just how it sounds, a dindu. Me neither before I learned it. It's believed to originate from people watching Cops and noticing what they saw as a familiar theme, right? Now, Cops and shows like it just featured a camera crew that would go around on shifts with police officers, certain departments, et cetera, and they would be right there. If there was a chase, the cameraman would be running, camera shaky and everything, as the police officer is trying to apprehend a suspect. Now, more times than not on this show, uh, obviously you were dealing with people of lower economic situations. Not all of them were quote unquote black, but whenever there were black people on these shows, obviously this is where the racists would key in and focus. So you would have episodes where, say, someone is being detained or arrested. You'd more times than not hear somebody exclaim, "He didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing." Shorten that, he didn't do nothing. You know what I mean? People with certain accents or whatever the case is, obviously, growing up in certain communities. And that goes for every shade of human being there is, no matter who you are. There's a type of ebonics, so to speak. Some people call it a Creole or whatever the case is. This is just a normal thing that happens. It's so annoying how people that look like, me, for instance, get put in certain boxes with these stereotypes. It's stupidity, right? But just think about that. He didn't do nothing. And this has been a word on some of these Reddit platforms and these dark websites and even things like YouTube. They don't really do it as much because it's out now. But these are the words they were using to replace the N-word when they knew they couldn't say it as much. Pregnant pause. Or how about this simple one? This is way simpler, right? This is what they switched to when the Dindu was exposed. You would hear somebody just out of nowhere say, "I hate Mondays." Everybody hates Mondays, right? Well, you know who the Monday is in this scenario? Black people. Yep, ding, ding, ding. It's you. All right. And by the way, y'all, I only know all of this. It just so happened to be that on my journey of just learning and experiencing certain things, I sort of began to implement my own version of the fairness doctrine into a lot of my practices and views, right? Now, what that was just that the back in the day, they don't do it anymore for some reason. But say, for instance, a radio station had a Democratic candidate on. They also, because of the fairness doctrine, which was regulated, they also had to have a Republican on and give them both the same time, right? That's called the fairness doctrine. For some reason, it doesn't exist anymore. But for instance, the time I would give to a John Henry Clark, I'd also give to a David Duke. I just felt like it was just 360 degrees of knowledge, so to speak. Like learning Spanish before you go to Mexico, right? But yeah, I already mentioned PragerU on previous episodes, and you guys should have already Googled and found out what they were about, or at least watched a YouTube video or something like that. Maybe just Google if you don't want to give them the view. But check this. I found out that most of the Department of Education in Florida's changes in regards to African American history comes from them. That is something that even slipped by me. I was surprised by that. And by the way, that's the same company that seems to just have a nose for sniffing out and co-opting greedy, self-loathing Negroes to parrot their positions. As you just heard Lee Atwater say.
You can't say nigga, that hurts your backfire.
But someone with a black face can, right? Enter Jason Whitlock, Thomas Sowell, Candace Owens, Jonathan Isaacs, Jesse Lee Peterson.
Amazing.
And the list goes on. Now, I'll leave y'all with just this last point. It's a good one, I promise. There's a Democratic candidate running for president now by the name of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., nephew to JFK. Now, I noticed a cool little tweet where Buddy said this. Here's his tweet. Since the assassination of my father in 1968, candidates for president are provided Secret Service protection, but not me. Typical turnaround time for pro forma protection requests from presidential candidates is 14 days. After 88 days of no response and after several follow-ups by our campaign, the Biden administration just denied our request. Secretary Mayorkas says, quote, "I have determined that Secret Service protection for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not warranted at this time," end quote. Our campaign's request included a 67-page report from the world's leading protection firm detailing unique and well-established security and safety risks aside from commonplace death threats. All right, so that's the end of it. That is the tweet from Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s official Twitter account. Y'all heard that. Well, upon reading this twice, a few things crossed my mind. I said self. Self said, yeah. These are very specific numbers, right? I talked about numerology before, right? This guy is trying to become the president of the United States, and he comes from one of those families, right? There wouldn't be much that's really off the cuff. This isn't that kind of party. So I first took a look at the number 14. There's this thing called 14 words, and it reads, "We must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children." Huh. Next, I realized, one, I already know what the 88 stands for, right? In these racist circles, 8 represents the H, which is the 8th letter in the alphabet. And so if you put two eights together, it equals to them, Heil Hitler. Right? They're all about this secretive stuff. So yeah, the 88 part, Heil Hitler. It's very interesting. Now, I just didn't realize at the time that these losers usually pair these things together. All right. Not quite done though. A little more numerology for y'all. And those who are into numerology should already know what the number 67 means, right? It means new beginnings. All right, so you already got the 14 words. I already read that. You got the 88. I already told y'all what that means. And then you got 67. Now I'm watching, just hoping this guy loses first. And by the way, this is the Kennedy that the bleach drinking Trump supporters were waiting for. You remember that? Like, we all ignored it because, they were saying JFK Jr., who actually died in 1999. And we just assumed that, hey, these people are nuts. They already drink bleach, so they would be talking, about QAnon and thinking somebody dead is going to come back alive, right? They thought he was coming back to help Trump. Now I just believe that these dummies let the cat out of the bag too early. This is who they were talking about. RFK Jr., not JFK Jr. This game is sinister, y'all. Don't fall off y'all square, man. These people, they'll show up to your barbershops like I've seen. They'll show up to your podcasts, all your urban stuff. They'll tell you they got hot sauce in their bag and that you're not black if you don't vote for them. But the playbook is always the same. Damn. I gotta salute it, man. It is very slick, so shout out for that. But that's about it. Man, I swear, man. Due to a lack of knowledge, my people are destroyed.
Do you hate all black people?
No, I don't.
You hate some black people?
I mean, I imagine so, probably.
Do you hate some black people?
Yeah, I imagine so, yeah, if I think about it.
Why do you hate them? Beta, baby!
Let's move right along to bit by bit. This ain't just a prediction. This is bit by bit. The bit by bit prediction of the day is: commercial flights in the future will be completely piloted by AI. An autopilot, so to speak, using advanced weather and GPS tracking to make flights safer than ever. According to Travel Radar, on an average, commercial flight autopilot is used 90% of the time. Only thing holding back airlines now seems to be the feeling of confidence in the landing capabilities of said autopilot. But hey, don't you fret. I'm sure they'll still have us pay the astronomical pricing. That's all I got for the time capsule today, y'all. I'm out. Peace.
Nigger.
And we are just universes crashing. Just do your best to leave a mark. Also, subscribe, comment, and leave 5 stars. This is Wendy, signing off. Dear future robots, peace.